Good day. We are the presenter number 2 and we will discuss pronoun. So what is pronoun? Pronoun is a word that can replace a noun in a sentence. So a pronoun is one of the 8 parts of speech. It is said here that it replaces a noun in a sentence. So it saves us from having to repeat the same words over and over. But the best term to use at any point depends on the situation, so we need to understand how different categories of pronoun work. So the noun that is replaced by a pronoun is called an antecedent. So we have categories of pronoun. So there are 8 categories of pronoun. These are number 1, personal pronoun. Number 2, demonstrative pronoun. Number 3, relative pronoun. Number 4, reciprocal pronoun. Number 5, indefinite pronoun. Number 6, interrogative pronoun. Number 7, reflexive pronoun. And number 8, last one is intensive pronoun. So what is personal pronoun? So personal pronouns are used in place of a specific person or thing. So personal pronouns are short words used to replace proper names of persons, places, things, or ideas so that the writer or speaker can avoid proper names. So there are different personal pronouns depending on whether we're referring to the subject or object in a sentence, grammatical person, gender, and the number of things or people in question. So the 4 types of personal pronouns are subject pronoun, object pronoun, possessive adjective, and possessive pronoun. So let's proceed. Here is the chart of the 4 types of pronoun. So the subject pronoun replaces the name of the subject in a sentence. So the examples are I, you, he, she, it, we, you, and they. So the object pronoun takes the place of the object in a sentence. So object pronouns are used as both direct objects and indirect objects. So we're familiar, indirect and indirect objects. So direct object is the receiver of the action mentioned in the sentence, while the indirect object identifies the person or thing for whom or what the action of the verb is performed. So the examples of object pronouns are me, you, him, her, it, us, you, and them. So here the possessive adjectives. So a possessive adjective sits before a noun or pronoun to show who or what owns it. So examples are my, your, his, her, its, our, yours, and their. So as with possessive adjectives, we use possessive pronouns to indicate who owns something, but with pronouns, we don't use a noun. So we use possessive pronoun when it is clear which object we are referring to. So examples are mine, yours, his, hers, ours, yours, theirs. So the difference between possessive adjectives and possessive pronoun is that possessive pronouns are used to replace the noun, while the possessive adjectives, like other adjectives, are used to describe a noun in a sentence. Most importantly, they describe who or what something belongs to. So the next slide here shows the example sentences for each type of pronoun. So I will not discuss it one by one because it is self-explanatory. Just read it. So subject pronouns, object pronouns, possessive adjectives, and possessive pronouns. So you will notice that the possessive pronouns form for its is blank because there is no possessive form for that term, for that pronoun. So let's proceed to the demonstrative pronoun. What is demonstrative pronoun? So a demonstrative pronoun is a noun used to point something out. So the demonstrative pronouns are these, that, these, and those. So it is used to point something specific within a sentence. So these pronouns can indicate terms in space or time, and they can be either singular or plural. Okay. So let's proceed to the example of demonstrative pronoun. So in the singular form, number 1, this is an expensive store. Number 2, that is a very tall building. So in the plural form, these are very expensive shoes. Those are tallest skyscrapers in the city. So the other categories will be discussed by my co-presenters. Thank you.
The third categories of pronoun is relative pronoun. So, what is relative pronoun? A relative pronoun is the one which we use to refer to nouns, whether they are people, places, things, animals, or ideas. Relative pronouns can be used to join two sentences. There are only few relative pronouns in English language. The most common are which, that, those, whose, whoever, whomever, who, and whom. In some situation, the words what, when, and where can also function as relative pronouns because there are only few of them, and there are also just a few rules of using relative pronouns. Keep them in mind as you write. And relative clauses are typically introduced by relative pronouns, and that the relative pronoun can be functioned as a possessive pronoun, an object, or a subject. When relative pronouns introduced restrictively relative clauses, no comma is used to separate the restrictive clause from the main clause. In American English, the relative pronoun whom is used rarely. You may notice this in conversations, but it is the best to use the term when writing to ensure that your work is grammatically correct. So we have examples. First is the cyclist who won the race trained hard. So the relative pronoun used is who. The second is the pants that I bought yesterday are already stained. The relative pronoun used is that. The third example is the 4 team leaders. Whoever the committee selects will be at tomorrow's meeting. The relative pronoun used is whoever. Fourth example is spaghetti, which is we eat at least twice a week, is one of my family's favorite meals. The relative pronoun used is which. Next example, where did you buy the dress that you wore last week? The relative pronoun used is that. Next, the book, when it was finally returned, was torn and stained. The relative pronoun used was when. Last example is the store on the corner where we usually buy all of our art supplies burned to the ground. The relative pronoun used is where. Next of the categories of pronoun is reciprocal pronoun. So what is reciprocal pronoun? From the word itself, reciprocal, it used to when each other or two or more subject is acting in the same way towards the other. For example, A is talking to B and B is talking to A. We say A and B are talking to each other. So the action is reciprocated. Next example is John talks to Mary and Mary talks to John. I give you a present and you give me a present. The dog bites the cat and the cat bites the dog. There are only 2 reciprocal pronouns and they are both 2 words, and those are each other, one another. When we use these reciprocal pronouns, there must be 2 or more people, things, or groups involved. So we cannot use reciprocal pronouns with I, you, he, she, and it. They must be doing the same thing. So we have examples. Number 1, John and Mary love each other. So we use the reciprocal pronoun each other. Next example, Peter and David hate each other. Another example for reciprocal pronoun each other. Next, the 10 prisoners were all blaming one another. So we use the reciprocal pronoun one another. Next example, both teams played hard against each other. We use the reciprocal pronoun each other. Next, we gave each other's gifts. Why don't we believe each other? They can see each other. The gangsters were fighting one another. The boats were bumping against each other in the storm.
So I am going to tell you about the indefinite pronoun. So the indefinite pronoun does not refer to any specific person, thing, or amount. It is vague and not definite. So indefinite pronoun is a pronoun which does not have a specific referent. So referent means the thing that a word or phrase denotes or stands for. So some typical indefinite pronouns are all, another, anybody or anyone, anything, each, everybody, everyone, everything, few, many, nobody, none, one, several, somebody, somebody, or someone. So many indefinite pronouns also function as other parts of speech. Look at the word another as example. So as you notice, the word another shows the other form function in a part of speech. So for example, in the pronoun example, he has one job in the day and another at night. So in adjective example, I'd like another drink, please. So most indefinite pronouns are either singular pronoun or plural pronoun. However, some of them can be singular in one context and plural in another. So notice that the singular pronoun takes a singular verb and singular should have an agreement. So for example, each of the players has a doctor. So same as the plural pronouns, plural pronoun also needs an agreement. So for example, many have expressed their views. So next one is interrogative pronoun. So interrogative pronoun is a pronoun which is used to make asking questions easy. So we use interrogative pronouns to ask questions. The interrogative pronoun represents the things that we don't know. So there are just 5 interrogative pronouns, or the 5 main questions asked in interrogative pronouns. That is who, whom, what, which, whose. So for the example number 1, whom is the correct form when the pronoun is the object of the verb, like whom did you see? However, in normal spoken English, native speakers would say or write who did you see? So next example is what do you want? Next is which came first? The last one is we've found everyone's keys. Whose did you find? So we sometimes use the suffix ever to make compounds from some of these pronouns. When we add the suffix ever, we use it to emphasis, often to show confusion or surprise. So there are 3 examples of interrogative pronouns that has a suffix whatever. So that is whoever, whatever, and whichever. So there are also examples of that. So the examples in whoever would want to do such a nasty thing. So in whatever, did he say to make her cry like that? So the last one is whichever. They're all fantastic. Whichever would you choose? That's all.
Good day, classmates. So for today, I will be discussing about the reflexive and intensive pronoun. The question is, what is the difference between the reflexive and intensive pronoun? Reflexive pronoun and intensive pronoun are like identical twins. They look alike, but they are different from each other. And these are the forms of a reflexive pronoun and intensive pronoun. These are myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, yourselves, themselves. These forms may be either a reflexive, or these forms can be used either a reflexive or intensive pronoun. First, reflexive pronoun are objects that refer to the subject of a sentence or clause. For example, Rodney will write a note himself. Himself, which is a pronoun, refers to Rodney, which is the subject of the sentence. Second example, I will give myself 3 months to learn Hangul. Notice that the myself, which is the pronoun of the sentence, refers to the pronoun I, which is the subject of the sentence. Take note that reflexive pronoun are object and it is necessary to the sentence. The next is intensive pronoun. Intensive pronoun are used to emphasize another noun or pronoun or antecedent in the sentence. For example, Leo himself organized the school's recycling program. The pronoun himself is used to emphasize Leo, who is the antecedent of the sentence. Take note that the intensive pronoun are only used to emphasize the nouns and the pronouns, and this is unnecessary to the sentence. So it means it's not important part of the sentence. These are the examples. So you can see here we have 2 examples here. The first one with the intensive pronoun, Leo himself organized the school's recycling program. And for the second example, it doesn't have an intensive pronoun. Leo organized the school's recycling program. The first sentence has the intensive himself, and the second sentence has no intensive. You can notice that you can take himself out of the sentence, and thus the sentence change, or does it still make sense? Yes, of course, because as I mentioned, intensive pronoun are not necessary part of the sentence. Okay, so just to wrap up, reflexive pronouns are objects, and reflexive pronoun are necessary or important part of the sentence, while the intensive pronoun emphasizes only the nouns and pronouns, and it is not necessary part of the sentence. Okay, here is the last tip that I can give you. If you're still confused to the difference between, or if you're still confused to the difference between the two, here is a trick you can use to tell the two pronouns apart. To determine whether a pronoun is reflexive or intensive, you can read a sentence aloud and remove the pronoun to the sentence. If the meaning of the sentence change, the pronoun is reflexive. And if the meaning of the sentence stays the same, the pronoun is intensive. That is all for now. Thank you for listening.